Podbean, your message amplified.
Ready to share your message with the world? Start your podcast journey with Podbean.
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 Podbean. Podbean, the AI-powered all-in-one podcast platform.
Thousands of businesses and enterprises trust Podbean to launch their podcasts.
Launch your podcast on Podbean today.
My school uses Podbean.
My church, too.
I love it. I really do.
You are now listening to Mark's Unexplained World by Mark the Medium. Available on Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Prime, Podbean, and most other podcast platforms. This episode is about the Utah Monolith. So it's over to you now, Mark, for this week's Tall Tale.
The Utah Monolith was a 3 meters or 9.8 foot high metal pillar that stood in a red sandstone slot canyon in northern San Juan County, Utah, in the United States. The pillar itself was made of metal sheets that were riveted into a tall triangular prism, which was placed, unlawfully mind, on public land between the July and the October of 2016, and it stood unnoticed for over 4 years until its discovery and removal in late 2020. The monolith was originally discovered by a Utah state biologist in the November of 2020 during a routine helicopter survey of wild bighorn sheep, and within days of its discovery, many members of the public found the elusive pillar and made their way to its remote location by using GPS mapping software and cross-referencing data with the most likely flight path of the biologist's survey team. Following its intense media coverage, it was then on the 27th of November in 2020 subsequently and covertly removed by 4 residents from the Moab-based recreationist group, also in Utah. And after nearly a month in their possession, the monolith was then given to the Bureau of Land Management, where it currently is still in their custody. And then, following the discovery of the original Utah monolith, over 200 similar metal columns were erected in other places throughout the world, including elsewhere in North America, along with various other countries in Europe, South America and Australia. However, it was soon realised that these many other metal pillars that were erected around the world were built by other local artists as deliberate imitations of the original column, and the identity of the original Utah monolith makers is, still to this day, unknown, as so are the objectives. Greetings, Unexplainers. Thank you for tuning in once again and listening to this obelisk-type episode of Mark's Unexplained World. My name is Mark Hughes. I'm a medium, a ufologist, a true crime buff, and a man with a very dark and disturbed sense of humour who also realised just the other day that not knowing what Armageddon meant wasn't the end of the world. But just to give you a better idea of who I am and what I do, every week, usually on a Tuesday night, though occasionally on a Wednesday, allowing for bank holidays and busy weekends, I do a podcast on the many wide and various subjects that fall under the Unexplained banner. These include ufology, hauntings, disasters, and all sorts of other paranormal phenomena, including true crime, unsolved crime, serial killers, the darker side of some past celebrities, and the occasional missing person that often goes unnoticed. So, if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review or an opinion of the episode that I can reply to. A thumbs up, has subscribed to my channel and hit that notification bell. Or if you are listening on any of the other podcast platforms, again, give us a like and a follow. And if you get a few minutes, perhaps you might like to check out my social media groups and pages, including Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, which are filled daily with all things unexplained and crime. I'll put a few links to some of my socials in the description. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about the upright standing story surrounding the Utah Monolith. And this week's necessary disclaimer, well, I'm going to call this episode a PG, unless of course you have a paranoia regarding monoliths or 3-metre tall structures. However, as usual, my opinions and comments are strictly my own, but the facts of the case remain. I also apologise if I pronounce anything incorrectly. My English, although it is my first and only language, I realised the other day that although I started out with nothing, I still have most of it in my possession. But anyway, enough of this tomfoolery. Let's get on with the story. According to Wikipedia, a slot canyon, which is where the Utah monolith was originally found, of course, is a long, narrow channel or drainage way with sheer rock walls that are typically eroded into either sandstone or other sedimentary rock. And the term slot canyon is especially used in the semi-arid southwestern United States, particularly within the Colorado Plateau. Slot canyons are subject to flash flooding and commonly contain unique ecological communities that are distinct from the adjacent drier uplands. And some slot canyons can measure less than 1 metre or 3 feet across the top and drop to more than 30 metres or 100 feet to the floor. Many slot canyons are formed in either sandstone and or limestone rock, although slot canyons in other rock types such as granite and basalt are also possible. And San Juan County, which again is the area in which the monolith was found, is a county in the southeastern portion of the US state of Utah, and as of the 2020 United States Census, had a population of 14,518. The Utah State Legislature named the county due to the San Juan River, which is a major tributary of the Colorado River in the southwestern United States, and was named by Spanish explorers in honour of St. John, who was one of the 12 apostles of Jesus according to the New Testament. The San Juan County borders Arizona, Colorado and New Mexico at the Four Corners, which is a region of the aforementioned southwestern United States, with San Juan's county seat being Monticello, while its most populous city is Blanding. On the 18th of November in 2020, wildlife officials with the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources were in southeastern Utah conducting a survey of the bighorn sheep, which is a species of sheep native to just North America, from a helicopter which was being piloted by the Utah Department of Public Safety, or the DPS for short. And whilst flying over a slot canyon in a remote area, one of the wildlife officials suddenly spotted what looked like a tall metal pillar stuck in the ground. So he then told the pilot, a man named Brett Hutchins, to fly over the location again, with Brett Hutchins describing the moment as, and I quote, the biologist is the one who spotted it, and we just happened to fly directly over the top of it. He was like, whoa, 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 turn around. And I was like, what? And he's like, there's this thing back there. We've got to go look at it. The pilot, Brett Hutchins, also said that the tall pillar looked man-made and had been, and I quote, firmly planted in the ground. We were kind of joking around that if one of us suddenly disappears, then the rest of us make a run for it. On the 20th of November in 2020, the Utah Department of Public Safety then posted a photo of the pillar onto its Instagram account. And then on the 23rd of November, 3 days later, the Utah DPS then released videos and photographs of the pillar on their own website. However, due to safety concerns, they did not disclose the pillar's location. The metal structure was said to have stood at least 3 metres or 9.8 feet in height over the bedrock, with each of its 3 sides being 58 centimetres or 23 inches wide, with a hollow interior. The triangular prism was not magnetic and appeared to be made of 3mm or 1/8 inch stainless steel or aluminium sheets that were joined with rivets. There was a silicon cork or epoxy along its base, and when striking the metal it produced a dampened sound, indicating that although it was thought to be hollow, it may have some type of insulation inside. And although the metal pillar was assembled using blind rivets, which indicated human origins, it did make it difficult to determine its age. After this first short break, in part 2 we will look at the Utah monolith's possible origins, along with its legality.
Dare to discover the unknown. Book your own paranormal investigation at HAPRC 2026. The Haunted Antiques and Paranormal Research Centre, HAPRC, is now taking 2026 bookings, and your next supernatural adventure is just a £50 deposit away. New for 2026, we've upgraded. Our location now features improved sound insulation on all our windows, making it easier than ever to hear what shouldn't be there. Bring your team, bring your equipment, explore the unexplained, record the impossible. Limited slots available. Secure yours now. Book now. Believe later. HauntedResearchCentre.com.
On first discovering the strange obelisk, the Utah Department of Public Safety decided to describe the tall metal pillar as a monolith, which is a term later repeated by other major media outlets. Although the word monolith refers to a single great stone, it has also become closely associated with the monolith from the Arthur C. Clarke film 2001, A Space Odyssey, to which, according to some people, the Utah monolith bears circumstantial resemblance. The Utah monolith, over the short period of time from when it was discovered, suddenly became a bit of a celebrity, what with various news reports and online documentaries being placed all over various social media platforms. Dave Sparks, who is a host of the TV show called The Diesel Brothers, decided to visit the 3 metres tall metal pillar that stood in the red sandstone slot canyon in northern San Juan County in Utah, and describe it in a video he posted onto Instagram, saying that, and I quote, "They got concrete saw and they cut into the red rock there." He then continues, and again I quote, "You can see here on the bottom where they had a couple of overcuts with the saws." And Wendy Wisher, who works at the Department of Art and Art History at the University of Utah School of Fine Art, said, and I quote,
"One person alone could not have done it, so there is a group of people who have some knowledge of it somewhere."
And she continues, and again I quote,
"Most artists want some recognition for what they are doing, but this seems to include a level of humour and mystery as part of the intention."
On a short but interesting side note here, the Diesel Brothers is an American reality television series that premiered on the 4th of January in 2016 on the Discovery Channel, with the programme itself following a group of friends in Utah who repair and customise pickup trucks. The Utah Monolith has been compared to the works of other artists, such as John Harvey McCracken, who was an American minimalist visual artist who lived in the southwest desert, believing in the existence of extraterrestrials, and who had also expressed an interest in leaving behind a piece of artwork in the desert. And by all accounts, the object did indeed resemble the metallic monoliths that John McCracken made, even being described by the New York gallerist David Zwirner, who displays McCracken's work as, and I quote, nearly identical. However, this statement was soon retracted by a David Zwirner spokesman, who said that it was more than likely created by another artist who was paying homage to John McCracken and his work. Sadly, John Harvey McCracken passed away at the age of 76 on the 8th of April in 2011. It was also suggested that the Utah monolith could have been the work of a Patricia Lefornhawk, who is, according to Google, and I quote, a modern surrealist whose body of work is a meditation on the nature of form, juxtaposed against minimal desert landscapes, and through this deep, slow, intentional expression, she strips away the unnecessary in an attempt to reveal truths in the mysterious and magisterial. And she is also known to have both lived in Utah and installed sculptures in the desert. However, she has also said that the Utah monolith was not her work. Another suggestion behind the erection of the tall metal obelisk was Derek Despain, a Utah-based monolith builder who lives near where the new monolith was found, with this suggestion being made by the photographer Elliot Lee Hazel, based on a screenshot of some of his Instagram pictures. However, Derek Despain, when asked about the allegation, has neither confirmed nor denied any involvement. According to reports, over the last few years, a number of movies have been made in the area, including 127 Hours, Mission Impossible 2, and HBO's Westworld. However, according to a spokeswoman for the Utah Film Commission, she said that, to their knowledge, the monolith was not left behind by any film production. But the New York Times said that its unknown origin, and I quote,
provides a pleasant sensation of uncertainty,
and that it might, and again I quote,
lose its aura and power if we knew who had created it.
The Utah Division of the Bureau of Land Management, or the BLM for short, said that it had received credible reports that the 3-metre high metal pillar that was standing in the red sandstone slot canyon had been removed on the evening of the 7th of November in 2020, nearly 4 years after its original construction, by a then unknown party, which is now known to be the Moab-based recreationists Andy Lewis, Sylvan Christensen and Homer Manson, along with an anonymous companion. And according to reports, several adventure photographers had posted details along with pictures about its dismantling and removal on social media, with one witness reporting that the 4 men, without using any tools, had pushed the monolith over, while all onlookers could do was watch and say things like, and I quote,
This is why you don't leave trash in the desert.
Before it was taken apart and carried away in pieces in a wheelbarrow, with the Mo-based recreationists referring to the conservation ethic of leave no trace. Witnesses then reported seeing a pickup truck driving away from the site carrying the dismantled object, and more photos of the now monolithless site were afterwards posted by visitors, again to social media, showing that all that was left in the space was a small triangular metal stump stuck in the ground. On an interesting side note here, and just to take us nicely up to the end of part 2, the Bureau of Land Management, or the BLM for short, is an agency within the United States Department of the Interior responsible for administering US federal lands, and is headquartered in Washington, D.C., with it overseeing more than 247.3 million acres of land, or 1/8 of the United States' total land mass. The Bureau was created by Congress during the presidency of Harry S. Truman in 1946 by combining two existing agencies, the United States General Land Office and the Grazing Service. The agency manages the federal government's nearly 700 million acres of subsurface mineral estate located beneath federal, state and private lands severed from their surface rights by the Homestead Act of 1862, with most BLM public lands located in these 12 western states: Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Oregon, Utah, Washington and Wyoming. The mission of the Bureau of Land Management is, and I quote,
to sustain the health, diversity and productivity of the public lands for the use and enjoyment of present and future generations.
Originally, BLM holdings were described as land nobody wanted, simply because homesteaders had passed them by. The agency manages 221 wilderness areas, 29 national monuments and some 636 other protected areas as part of the National Conservation Lands, which were formerly known as the National Landscape Conservation System, and totalling about 36 million acres. And in addition to the National Conservation Lands, also include nearly 2,400 miles of wild and scenic rivers and nearly 6,000 miles of national scenic and historical trails. There are more than 63,000 oil and gas wells on BLM public lands, with total energy leases generating approximately $5.4 billion in 2013 alone, which is an amount that is divided amongst the Treasury, the state and Native American groups. After this second short break, in part 3, we will look at the inquiries that the BLM had made regarding the Utah monolith's removal and the legacy that the 3-metre high metal pillar left on the world.
Fright Nights was established in 1999 as the first company in the world to offer overnight ghost hunt experiences to the general public, pioneering paranormal events since the last century. Fright Nights operate at hundreds of the UK's most haunted and exclusive venues. All events have their own team of experienced paranormal investigators, mediums and psychics. They have a VIP members club for regular returning guests, offering loyalty discounts and exclusive invitation-only events. They can also host private events for your family and friends. You can contact them on 07 852 998 628 or email them at office@frightnights.co.uk. Or take a look at their website at www.frightnights.co.uk, where you can see the many locations they investigate, and learn about them and the opportunities they have available. Hundreds of ghost hunters join Fright Nights every month for the most thrilling ghost hunting experiences they'll never forget. If you haven't been on a ghost hunt before, then why not join them to see what it's all about? Why not visit their social media sites for up-to-date information on all the places they visit and to see what's coming up in the future? They look forward to seeing you all soon. Fright Nights Ghost Hunting Events. Remember, only the original will do.
Although the Utah Division of the Bureau of Land Management said that it had received credible reports that the Utah Monolith had been removed on the evening of the 7th of November in 2020, approximately 3 weeks later, on the 28th of November, they also released another statement on the agency's Facebook page, firstly saying that they had nothing to do with its removal, and secondly, because the structure itself was considered private property, they would not be investigating it any further. And so they would leave it up to the local sheriff's office to deal with as he saw fit. However, even though the local San Juan County Sheriff Office said that they could not devote their resources, they did actually post a most wanted poster on their Facebook page, which, to be perfectly honest with you here, Unexplainers, I find that quite amusing. I mean, can you imagine a picture of a 3-metre tall metal post with the words, "Have you seen this monolith?" or "Wanted, dead or alive," printed above it in large stenciled letters? But anyway, as usual, I digress. On the 30th of November in 2020, the authorities reversed their initial decision to not investigate the missing obelisk and planned a joint investigation with the Bureau of Land Management, and the next day, on the 1st of December, the Chief Deputy in San Juan County, Alan Freestone, confirmed by stating, and I quote, "I know they have some leads, and that's all we're saying right now." The group known as the Moab-based Recreationists, which consisted of Andy Lewis, Sylvan Christensen, Homer Manson, along with the anonymous companion, who, if you remember, were the group that removed the monolith on the evening of the 7th of November in 2020, that I mentioned in part 2 of the podcast. Well, 4 days after the monolith's removal, both Andy Lewis and Sylvan Christensen decided to post a video online entitled "We Removed the Utah Monolith," which, to be honest, isn't the most original titles, but then maybe that's just me. The video showed what they claimed to be themselves, along with 2 other people, hauling the 3-metre tall metal structure away in a wheelbarrow. No expense spared there, I see. Sylvan Christensen then, in his wisdom, decided it would be a cracking idea to post the very same video to both TikTok and Instagram, citing, and I quote, "Clear precedents for how we share and standardise the use of our public lands, natural wildlife, native plants, freshwater sources, and human impacts upon them," highlighting the damage done to the area by the large number of sightseers who were arriving at the remote location that had neither parking facilities or restrooms. However, in several interviews since the video's release, Sylvan Christensen has said that he had received online both hateful comments along with death threats and physical harm as a result of his video. On the 20th of December in 2020, over a month after the Utah Monolith's initial discovery, fellow Moab-based recreationist member Andy Lewis also decided that he would release a pre-recorded video on Instagram showing what appeared to be the Utah Monolith intact in his backyard, contrary to the speculation and rumour control that it had been destroyed. with him also claiming that he and his friends had also heard of similar plans to completely destroy the obelisk on the night of its eventual removal from another group, which is why him and his team, meaning the Mo-based recreationists of course, removed it in the first place before it could be demolished by others. And, I suppose to be fair to be Andy Lewis, his video was mainly done in an alleged response to the numerous death threats that he had also receiving online. According to reports, Andy Lewis and his fellow Mobers have since donated the Utah Monolith to the Bureau of Land Management in order to help them investigate both its origin and creation and eventually find it a new home. Soon after the Utah Monolith's discovery on the 18th of November in 2020 at a red sandstone slot canyon in northern San Juan County, reports started to emerge throughout social media of similar tall metal columns being found in many other places throughout the world, including other locations across both North and South America, Central America, and various other locations throughout Europe, with a total of over 200 similar metal columns being declared. The origins of these other tall metal structures from around the world varied, with some monoliths being made by artists who were inspired by news coverage of the original Utah pillar, and others, like the two Pittsburgh monoliths, which were made by local businesses simply for promotional purposes. Some of these other monoliths, which were mostly made from metal, were subsequently removed, and although the term monolith refers to a single great stone, I think it's safe to presume, and as I touched on the subject earlier, that with these particular sculptures, the name does derive from the monolith that appears in the 1968 science fiction film 2001, A Space Odyssey, with this connection giving rise to the speculation about an extraterrestrial origin. Although the phenomena has mostly been viewed as nothing more than either a craze or an internet hoax. There are a couple of websites that list all 200 plus of the monoliths that were posted, excuse the pun, around the world, but I've listed just a small handful here of the more, shall we say, interesting ones. On the 29th of December in 2020, a monolith appeared at Symphony Forest Park in Ahmedabad, Gujarat in India, with one of the panels on the tall metal pillar featuring a selection of etched numbers that related to longitudes and latitudes of wildlife parks in India. The anonymous artist said in an interview that, and I quote, "The monolith is shrouded by mystery around the world because people enjoy the mystery of unlocking new ideas and unlocking new thoughts. And this was my contribution to that, engagement of thinking." Although it disappeared just over a fortnight later on the 13th of January, leaving a metallic sphere in its place. On the 10th of December in 2020, a monolith was reported in a construction site in Zenata near Casablanca. During the investigation, it was determined that the tall metal structure was installed by the chemicals and logistics company called Top Negose, I think that's how it's pronounced, as part of a communication campaign for its new robot called Aya, which was made in partnership with a Silicon Valley company, with a representative from the company explaining to the authorities that the robot in question, meaning Aya of course, as being trapped inside the monolith. On the 9th of December in 2020, a steel monolith was discovered at the Kadzielnia Nature Reserve, Kielce in Poland, and has since been fenced off with tape due to a possible increase of radiation in the area. And then later on the same day, a second monolith was discovered by passing runners in Warsaw near the Świętokrzyski Bridge. However, and just to add a little bit of conspiracy mystery here, the city has denied any involvement with these structures. And in the UK on the 6th of December in 2020, a reflective monolith was found on Compton Beach on the Isle of Wight. However, this particular monolith, unlike the other installations from around the world, was not made of metal, but rather from a wooden plinth covered in mirrored plastic. And 2 days later, on the 8th of December, it was claimed by a local designer named Tom Dunford. The monolith itself sold for £810 via online auction with 53 bids, and with the proceeds going to charity. And in Arkansas on the 7th of January in 2021, a monolith was discovered in Edmonton, in Alberta's capital city. The local monolith is 3 metres tall and is said to weigh 120 kilograms and is made of galvanised steel. It was made by Brent Cermaksky, who is the general manager at Alberta Custom Metal Fabrications, who said, and I quote, This is just a little something to make people chuckle when they drive by and say, "Hey, look, we've got one of those in Edmonton now too." And lastly, one more. On the 13th of December in 2020, a 3 metre tall monolith was discovered by a local resident who was driving around the farmland in Eureka Springs in which it was located. The origin of the monolith itself has undergone much speculation, as the land it currently resides on hosts an annual alien-themed music festival. The owner of the venue claims that all the entrances and exits to the property are monitored by surveillance equipment. However, they never captured any visitors entering or exiting the campgrounds that particular day or night before the structure appeared. So, going back to the original Utah monolith in northern San Juan County, and the Utah Department of Heritage and Arts said in a statement on their Twitter feed at that time that the monolith is vandalism, adding that they were concerned about the damage that could be done to the ancient artwork and archaeological artefacts in the region. And the DPS, or otherwise known as the Department of Public Safety, also released a statement quoting the Bureau of Land Management's regulations, and that it is illegal to install structures, including art, on public lands without permission, no matter what planet you're from.
Thank you all for taking the time out to listen to this episode of Mark's Unexplained World. In our next episode, show number 159, we are going to be looking at sleepwalking. Sleepwalking, characterised by walking or performing other complex behaviours while in a state of sleep. It is more common in children, although they often outgrow it by their teenage years. Sleepwalking typically occurs during non-REM sleep, particularly in the deep sleep stage, and can lead to injuries if the person is not monitored. While most episodes are harmless, they can pose risks, such as attempting to drive or engage in other dangerous activities while unaware.
This show was written and researched by myself, Mark Hughes, and proofread and edited by Linda Hughes. The pronunciations of all the names and places was all mine. The voice actors in this episode were Mark Hughes, Linda Hughes and Denise Poolar, with special thanks to Neil Packer and the staff at the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre in Hinckley. And of course a big thank you to everyone for listening. We never run out of ideas here at the office for the Mark's Unexplained World podcast. But if you know of any other intriguing stories under the Unexplained banner, including ufology, hauntings, disasters, and any other sort of paranormal phenomena, as well as true crime, unsolved crime, and missing people, just drop me a direct message and I will see what I can do. I will also include the name of the person who suggested the idea in the end credits of the podcast, if they're happy for me to do so, of course. And again, just to add, if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review and a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you are listening on any other of the other podcast platforms, again, give us a like and a follow. I thank you in advance. Mark's Unexplained World, because there's more to the paranormal than meets the third eye. And remember, guys, keep it real. Because being real is better than being perfect. No AI was used or harmed in the making of this or any other episode of Mark's Unexplained World. This show and all its contents are covered by basic copyright of Mark the Medium.